Homes in Massachusetts didn't just hold their ground. In places like Norwell, they gained $50 for $1,660 in 12 months, while renters in Western Massachusetts saw average rents jump 30% since 2020. Here is the story of how limited supply, investor competition, and selective buyer urgency are colliding across Boston, the Berkshires, and beyond, and why the math says the pressure isn't done yet. Start with the scoreboard. In September 2025, the median sales price for a single-family home across Massachusetts reached $654,500, up 4.7% year-over-year compared to September 2020 $4,000. Condos settled at a $525,000 median, a 1% gain over the same stretch of time. Closed sales didn't retreat. They rose 4.8% for single-family homes and 6.4% for condos in that same September snapshot. Even as activity picked up, the lifeblood of choice remained thin. Single-family inventory fell 4.2% year-over-year, while condo inventory nudged up 5.1%. New supply did stir. New single-family listings climbed 7.5%, and new condo listings jumped 13.3%. Contrast those numbers with the national baseline. The typical home value in the United States landed at $364,891 in September, with year-over-year growth at exactly 0.0%. The gap between Massachusetts and the nation is not just philosophical, it is numerical. Boston's market underscored that. In August, a home value gauge for the Boston Metro sat at $720,695, up 1% from a year earlier. The share of Boston listings with a price cut was just 19.0%. Median days on market came in at 21. A market heat index called it a strong seller environment. Those conditions didn't spring from nowhere. Signals point to supply, policy, and competition as the main gears turning the system. On supply, Western Massachusetts alone is estimated to need an additional 17,000 housing units by 2030.5 to meet current and future demand. Across the Commonwealth, the planned build pace targets at least 222,000 new homes over the next 10 years. At the same time, short-term rentals expanded by 40% region-wide between 2017 and 2023, with the Berkshires carrying much of that growth. In Springfield, investor activity has been a steady force. Around 35% of all real estate transactions from 2004 to 2019 were by investors, defined as buyers who purchased 3 or more properties within 5 years or spent at least $3.45 million on properties between 2004 and 2023. Add in the simple reality that increasing mortgage rates have slowed growth but not erased it, and you get a market where slight demand relief meets persistent scarcity. You can see the scarcity in the way prices move town by town. In a list built around the 12 months ending in September 2026, Norwell and the Boston-Cambridge-Newton Metro led Massachusetts price gains by dollar amount. The typical home value in Norwell reached $1,207,653, up $53,660 in 1 year, a 5.5% leap. Over 5 years, values there rose $368,108 for a 55.8% gain. Northwestern slopes showed strength too. Egremont in the Pittsfield Metro climbed to a typical value of $805,000, up $52,686 in 1 year, or 6.9%. Over 5 years, Egremont added $341,259, a 73.6% surge. On Boston's Wealth Belt, the accelerations are measured in luxury digits. Weston's typical home value reached $220,602, a $48,044 pickup in 1 year, or 2.2%. Over 5 years, Weston Homes added $832,165, posting 59.9% appreciation. Wellesley stood at $1,969,343, up $42,206 in 1 year, or 2.2%, and up $640,686 across 5 years, a 48.2% rise. Dover, with a typical value of $1,746,599, gained $35,329 in that year, or 2.1%, and $554,678 over the 5-year arc, or 46.5%. Lincoln held $1,518,768, tacking on $36,647 in a year, or 2.5%, while the 5-year increase measured $515,631, equal to 51.4%. Newton's typical home value landed at $1,497,949, rising $34,506 year over year, or 2.4%, and $417,534 across 5 years, or 38.6%. Lexington reached $1,560, $212, $26,790 higher over the year, or 1.7%, and $485,894 higher over 5 years, or 45.2%. Concord sat at $1,410,307, up $34,801 in 12 months, or 2.5%, and $510,696 in 5 years, a 55.0% boost. On the North Shore and the South Shore, the gradient shifts but never fades. Manchester totaled $1,280,884, a $46,657 annual increase, or 3.8%. Over 5 years, it stacked up $473,998, marking a 58.1% rise. Wenham crossed 7 figures at $1,040,002, adding $46,683 in a year, or 4.7%, and $383,462 in 5 years, or 58.4%. Gloucester's typical value reached $759,274, up $30,224 on the year, or 4.1%, and $263,332 over 5, or 53.1%. Scituate stood at $976,398 with an annual gain of $20,586, or 2.2%, and a 5-year jump of $337,741, or 52.9%. Duxbury registered 10078K, $765, up $24.10, $87 in a year, or 2.3%, and $410,180 in 5 years, a 61.4% climb. Marshfield held $774,194, a $19,792 yearly pickup, or 2.6%, and $270,096 over 5 years, or 53.6%. Down the price spectrum, velocity shows up in percentage terms. Adams, in the Pittsfield Metro, stood at $263,580 and jumped $20,736 in a year, an 8.5% rise. Over 5 years, that small market added $105,680, clocking 66.9% appreciation. West Stockbridge, at $670,106, rose $20,213 in 1 year, a 3.1% move, and $278,653 across 5 years, a 71.2% flight. Stockbridge itself at $738, $102 gained $26,652 in a year, or 3.7%, and $280, $3,840 in 5, or 62.5%. Monterey landed at $729,1616, rocking a $28,985 annual rise, or 4.1%, and $248,486 over 5, or 51.6%. Mount Washington reached $621,030 with a $30,308 yearly increase, or 5.1%, and a $204,941 five-year gain, or 49.3%. The Vineyard speaks a different dialect, but the tune is the same. Chilmark, in the Vineyard Haven Metro, carried a typical home value of $2,322,845. Even at that altitude, values climbed $17,690 in a year, or 0.8%, and $793,789 over 5 years, for a 51.9% increase. Zoom back to Boston. A typical home value of $720,695 in August, 1% yearly growth, 19.0% of listings showing cuts, and a 21-day median to go under contract. All of those signals form one story. Supply remains scarce relative to demand. More evidence arrives in the statewide metrics from September 2020 to 5. Closed sales up 4.8% for single-family homes and 6.4% for condos. Yet single-family inventory fell 4.2% in the same year-over-year reading. That imbalance explains why a well-priced property can still attract multiple offers. Pricing discipline matters. Sellers who aim for a balanced Goldilocks price point are meeting buyers rather than missing them. The widening distance between national averages and Massachusetts pockets is stark. At $364,891, the national typical home value in September posted 0.0% year-over-year growth. Meanwhile, the Boston-Cambridge-Newton orbit is stacked with towns holding $1 million typical value even before you step into high-gloss enclaves. Take Weston at $2,220,602 and Wellesley at $1,969,343. Or Needham at $1,513,544, up $22,303 in 1 year, or 1.5%, and $486,630 in 5 years, or 47.4%. Winchester at $1,514,768, added $19,899 in a year, or 1.3%, and $430,901 across 5, or 39.8%. Dover at $1,746,599, gained $35,329 in a year, or 2.1%, and $554,678 in 5, or 46.5%. Boxford cleared $1,047,997, a yearly jump of $33,762, or 3.3%, and a 5-year change of $346,856, or 49.5%. These are not outliers emerging from a sleepy field. They are peaks in a range where the average altitude keeps climbing. Outside the belt, mid-market towns still move with force. Andover at $980,000, $274, up $22,976 in a year, or 2.4%, and up $326,789 over 5 years, or 50.0%. Newbury at $925,253, rising $22,306 in 12 months, or 2.5%, and $332,665 over 5, or 56.1%. Essex at $890N, $47, an annual lift of $24,710N, or 2.8%, and a 5-year gain of $302,208, or 50.6%. Hamilton at $878,754 added $22,767 in a year, or 2.7%, and $260,228 across 5, or 42.1%. Rowley at $787,048 rose $18,492, or 2.4%, and $249,194 over 5 years, or 46.3%. Marblehead at $1,024,768, up $19,002 or 1.9%, and $305,605 across 5 years, or 42.5%. Danvers at $721,646, a $17,993 yearly climb, or 2.6%, and a $202,100 five-year change, or 38.9%. Head west into the Pioneer Valley and beyond, and the affordability story turns into a stability paradox. East Hampton's typical value, $422,674, gained $18,765 year over year, or 4.6%, with a five-year rise of $128,882, or 43.9%. Longmeadow at $522.62 moved up $20,563 in a year, or 4.1%, and $159,919 across 5, or 44.2%. Those increases hit the same households who are also seeing rents up by an average of 30% since 2021, and evictions climbing most commonly for non-payment. The share of renters paying more than a third of their income on housing is about one-half across Western Massachusetts. Among renters earning between $10,000 and $19,000 a year, the burden becomes near total. 78% are cost-burdened by that standard. Layer in investor dynamics, and you get a fuller picture of how the latter is moving. In Springfield, about 35% of all real estate transactions between 2004 and 2019 were by investors defined in this context as buyers who purchased 3 or more properties within 5 years, or buyers who spent at least $3.45 between 2004 and 22 cents 3. That pattern creates competition for buyers attempting to get a foothold. On the rental side, short-term listings think weekend retreats and week-long stays expanded region-wide by 40% from 2017 to 2023, with the Berkshires absorbing much of that growth. In tourist markets, where a 2-bedroom stands a decent chance of becoming a 3-night booking, the long-term rental pool shrinks, and the monthly price of what's left is pushed up. In coastal towns and inner suburbs, rising values do not erase the need for precision. Consider West Newbury at $942,399, a $1,954 a year climb, or 2.2%, and a $321,613 five-year gain, or 50 to 1.8%. Topsfield at $961,242, a $19,580 uplift in a year, or 2.1%, and a $306,852 five-year move, or 46.9%. New listings in September 2025 increased 7.5% for single-family homes and 13.3% for condos. That added flow gives buyers a bit more choice. But in a market where single-family inventory still fell 4.2% year over year, the negotiating leverage remains tilted. It is visible in Boston's August backdrop, where only 19.0% of listings took price cuts and the median days on market was 21. Sellers who anchor too high often earn time, not offers. Sellers who present just right pricing can still pull multiple offers in less than a month. Venture into the Worcester orbit, and the gradient shows sturdiness. Grafton's typical home value at $600,841 notched a $17,485 increase in 12 months, or 3.0%, and a five-year change of $197,506, or 49.0%. Sutton at $627 W201 added $17,573, or 2.9%, and $215,617 across 5 years, or 52.4%. Berlin at $655,080.50 $575 rise year over year, or 3.4%, and a $198,666 gain over 5 years, or 43.5%. These are markers of a region that's absorbing demand as Boston's prices and days on market metrics keep power in the hands of sellers. Move to the South Shore, and the math remains relentless. Pembroke at $648,000, $314 saw a $17,750 rise in a year, or 2.8%, and a $198,723 gain in 5, or 44.2%. West Bridgewater at $508,500, $266, increased $19,000, $315R, 3.4%, and $173,334 over 5 years, or 42.1%. Hanson at $598,383 picked up $17,658, or 3.0%, and $181,075 over 5 years, or 43.4%. Norwell's $1,276,653, $53,660 annual gain, and 5.5% surge speak to a high-demand pocket. North across Essex County, stability pairs with lift. Andover at $980,274 gained $20,227 in a year, or 2.4%. Boxford at $1,047,997 added $33,762 in a year, or 3.3%. Hamilton at $878,754 notched $22,767, or 2.7%. Essex at 899 hours, $407 rose $24,711, or 2.8%. Manchester at $1,280, $884 grew by $46,657, or 3.8%. Wenham's $1,430, $136,683 one-year growth, or 4.7%, adds another strand in a tapestry of tight inventory and high willingness to pay.
In the Boston, Cambridge, Newton core, the $1 Million Club widens.
Newton at $1,499,949, Lexington at $1,561,212, Wellesley at $1,969,343, Dover at $1,746,599, Weston at $2,220,602, Winchester at $1,514,768, Lincoln at $1,518,768, Needham at $1,513,000. $544 each one stepped higher between the 12 months ending in September 2025 and their 5-year windows. Manchester, Concord, and Boxford plot similar arcs, with Concord's $1,430, $9,300, and $34,801 one-year gain, or 2.5%, and $510,696 5-year lift, or 55.0%. The metropolitan label matters here too. Much of this cluster sits in the Boston, Cambridge, Newton, MA/NH metro, illustrating not just local heat but regional cohesion. Head down market and the appreciation continues, but wears a different face. Lawrence at $500,341 climbed $17,738 in a year, or 3.7%, and $178,378 in 5, or 55.4%. Methuen at $609,720 rose $20,348, or 3.5%, and $197,928 across 5, or 48.1%. Ashland at $6,270, $102.42, added $18,043, or 2.8%, and $295 in 5 years, or 45.9%. Danvers at $721,646, up $17,993, or 2.6%, and $202,139 across 5, or 38.9%. Rockport's $862,050.47, 1-year gain, or 2.0%, and a $260,828 5-year climb, or 43.4%. Rowley's $787,000 $48 and $18,492 one-year increase, or 2.4%, fits the same pattern. Steady lift, anchored by scarce supply. The Berkshire and Pioneer Valley towns give us a different, sobering lens. Rents across the 4 western Massachusetts counties have risen by an average of 30% since 21. Evictions have increased, most commonly for non-payment of rent. Roughly half of all renters there are cost-burdened, meaning they pay more than 1/3 of their income on housing. For the lowest income band cited renters making between $10,000 and $19,000 each year, 78% are cost-burdened under that definition. Those figures interact with the for-sale market in quiet, consequential ways. A household stretched by a 30% rent rise since 2022 has less room to save for a down payment. The longer they wait, the more the local for-sale market shifts upward. Adams up 8.5% in a year to $263,580. Stockbridge up 3.7% to $738,102, and Egremont up 6.9% to $805,000. In western Massachusetts alone, the estimated need for 17,000 additional homes by 2035 is a flashing sign for builders, planners, and buyers. What does all of this feel like on the ground? In Boston, a median of 21 days on market forces quick decisions. With only 19.0% of listings cutting their list price in August, buyers are often choosing between moving fast or missing. The statewide figures from September 2020 to 75 single-family inventory, down 4.2% year-over-year, even as new listings rose 7.5%, tell you that fresh options exist, but they are still outnumbered by the households chasing them. In Worcester County towns like Grafton, Sutton, and Berlin, gains of $17,485, $17,573, and $21,575 over a year show a floor of momentum. On the North Shore, Manchester and Wenham, adding $46,657 and $46,683 in 12 months, reveal how a seemingly small pool of listings can spark big annual gains. In Suffolk and Middlesex County hubs like Newton, Lexington, and Wellesley, the mix of school districts, commuter rail access, and job clusters continues to present a pay-up proposition. $1,499,949 in Newton, $1,561,212 in Lexington, $969,343 in Wellesley. Further east along the coast, Gloucester's $759,000, $274, and $30,224 annual bump, Scituate's $976,000, $398,000, and $20,586 rise, and Duxbury's $1,078,765 with a $24,087 gain keep the shoreline as competitive as ever. In Plymouth County, Pembroke's $648,000, $314, and $17,750 one-year lift, and Hanson's $598,380%, with $17,658 in new value broadcast a steady pulse rather than a lull. In Norfolk County, Westwood's $1,211,000 and $23,479 one-year climb add to a deeper trend as its 5-year $400,772 gain equals a 49.5% rise. The Vineyard's top-tier market adds another dynamic. At $2,322,845, Chilmark's one-year lift of $17,690 looks small in percentage terms, 0.8%, but its 5-year addition of $793,789 is a 51.9% move. In luxury enclaves where the base is high, the multi-year trajectories can matter more than annual wiggles. Weston's 5-year $832K $10,165 gain is another example, translating to a 59.9% climb despite a 2.2% year-over-year pace in the latest 12-month stretch. Now connect the dots between buyer psychology and the new listing flow. September's 7.5% increase in new single-family listings and 13.3% increase in new condo listings are openings. But the 4.2% drop in single-family inventory and the seller-tilted Boston profile 21 days on market, 19.0% of listings cutting say the window is still small. The advice behind Goldilocks pricing has teeth. Overreach a list price in a town like Norwell, and the $53,660 of annual appreciation you think you see can slip into a stale listing. Undershoot in a market like Manchester, where $46,657 showed up in 1 year, and you leave money on the table. Set it right, and the September trend of rising closed sales, 4.8% for single-family homes, 6.4% for condos, suggests buyers will meet you. There is another pressure point off the for-sale grid entirely. Short-term rentals rising 40% from 2017 to 2023 across Western Massachusetts didn't just create tourist wallets, they took inventory from the long-term pool. That is part of why rents have climbed 30% since 2021 in those counties. When an apartment converts to a weekend unit in the Berkshires, the monthly asking price for the unit down the street has room to rise. It is the same math as a limited for sale supply, but in a market where 50% of renters are already cost-burdened, the effects are harsher. In the lowest income bracket cited, where 70 to 8% are cost-burdened, small rent changes force life changes, delayed moves, longer commutes, more roommates before they ever become purchase decisions. For policymakers and builders, the numbers outline a binary. Western Massachusetts needs 17,000 more units by 2035 to meet demand. The statewide build goal is at least 222,000 homes over the next decade. Issuing more building permits, trimming red tape, and steering investment into both new construction and rehab are not abstract ideas. They are the only levers big enough to lower that 4.2% single-family inventory deficit and keep Boston's 21-day median days on market from falling even further. Without those moves, investors, who made up roughly 35% of transactions in Springfield from 2004 to 2019, under the definition of purchasing 3 or more properties within 5 years, or spending at least $3.45 million from 2004 to 2023, continue to have an advantage over first-time buyers with thinner capital stacks. Consider how these forces present in a sampling of 50 Massachusetts cities and towns organized by one-year price gains through September 2025. Rockport's $862,540 typical value climbed $17,210 in 1 year, or 2.0%, and $260,828 over 5, or 43.4%. Grafton's $600,841 rose $17,485, or 3.0%, and $197,506 over $5,596. Sutton at $627,201 grew $17,573, or 2.9%, and $215,617 in 5, or 52.4%. Hanson's $598, $383 added $17,658, or 3.0%, and $181,075 across 5, or 43.4%. Lawrence's 500,000 3-kilowatt ton and $17,738 1-year lift equals a 3.7% rise. Pembroke's $648,314 and $17,750 jump is 2.8%. Danvers, at $71,646, grew $17,993, or 2.6%. Ashland, at $1,667, $142 added $18,043, or 2.8%. Rowley's $787,048 and $18,490, $2 1-year growth is 2.4%. East Hampton's $422,674 and $18,765 increase is 4.6%. Marblehead's $1,244,768 and $19,002 gain is 1.9%. West Bridgewater at $585, $266 gained $19,315, or 3.4%. Topsfield's $961,242 and $19,580 lift equals 2.1%. Marshfield's $774,000, $194,000, and $19,792 move is 2.6%. West Newbury at $942,200, $399, advanced $19,854 or 2.2%. Winchester's 1514, $768, picked up $19,899 or 1.3%. West Stockbridge's $670,106 climbed $20,213 or 3.1%. Methuen's $609,720 rose $20,348 or 3.5%. Longmeadow's $520, $62, moved up $20,563 or 4.1%. Situate's $976,398 gained $20,586 or 2.2%. Adams at $263,580 advanced $20,736 or 8.5%. Berlin's $655,085 added $21,575 or 3.4%. Tyringham's $694,254 rose $20,923 or 3.3%. Newbury's $925,253 climbed $22,306 or 2.5%. Needham's $1,513,544 tacked on $22,323 or 1.5%. Hamilton's $878,754 rose $22,767 or 2.7%. Merrimack's $653,640 advanced 22 kilowatt, 792 kilowatt, or 3.6%. Andover's $980,274 grew $22,976 or 2.4%. Westwood's $1,211,000 added $23,479 or 2.0%. Duxbury's $1,078,765 rose $24,087 or 2.3%. Essex's $899,407 expanded $24,711 or 2.8%. Stockbridge's $738,102 increased $26,652 or 3.7%. Lexington's $1,560,212 advanced $26,790 or 1.7%. Cohasset's $1,390,509 moved up $28,174 or 2.1%. Monterey's $729,616 rose $28,985 or 4.1%. Gloucester's $759,274 gained $30,224 or 4.1%. Mount Washington's $621,035 added $30,308 or 5.1%. Boxer's $1,047,997 climbed $32,762 or 3.3%. Newton's $1,499,949 advanced $34,506 or 2.4%. Concord's $1,439,337 increased $34,801 or 2.5%. Dover's $1,746,599 rose $32,329 or 2.1%. Sherborne's $1,209,864 grew $35,985 or 3.1%. Lincoln's $1,518,768 increased $36,647 or 2.5%. Wellesley's $1,969,343 added $42,206, or 2.2%. Manchester's $1,289,884 climbed $46,657, or 3.8%. Wenham's 1042 jumped $46,683, or 4.7%. Weston's $220,602 rose $48,044, or 2.2%. Egremont's $805,000 surged $50,686, or 6.9%. And Norwell's $1,027,653 led with $53,660, or 5.5%. Five-year climbs reinforce the structural theme. In the Berkshires and the foothills of the Pittsfield Metro, Egremont's $341,259, or 73.6%, West Stockbridge's $278,653, or 71.2%, and Adams' $105,680, or 66.9%, show what tight supply and a tourism pull can do over longer arcs. On the coast and in Metro Boston's satellites, Weston's $832K, $165, or 59.9%, Duxbury's $410,180, or 61.4%, Wenham's $383,462, or 58.4%, Manchester's $473,998, or 58.1%, and Concord's $510,696, or 55.0%, lay out a decade-half narrative: scarce land, strong incomes, and the magnet of a knowledge economy pulling buyers towards specific school districts and commutes. Why this shape? Signals suggest it's the collision of three patterns. First, a statewide shortage that shows up as a 4.2% year-over-year decline in single-family inventory in September 2025, and as a 17,000-home need by 2035 in Western Massachusetts alone. Second, competition from capital. A 40% rise in short-term rentals between 2017 and 2023 region-wide, and a roughly 35% investor share of Springfield transactions from 2004 to 2019, defined by 3 or more purchases in 5 years, or $3.45 million spent from 2004 to 2023. Third, buyer selectivity in the face of higher borrowing costs. Increasing mortgage rates have slowed growth, but in markets like Boston, where median days on market is 20% of listings cut price in August, the balance still favors sellers who price to reality. The renter's story loops back into ownership outcomes. A 30% rent increase since 2025 across Western Massachusetts can take a household's monthly surplus and cut it to the bone. With half of area renters already cost-burdened, spending more than one-third of their income on housing, the path from renter to buyer narrows. In the $10,000 to $19,000 income band, where 78% are cost-burdened, it can all but disappear. The longer new construction lags the 222,000 home statewide target, the more that pressure cooks. Where local policy trims months off approvals, and where infrastructure can handle new units, supply can find the market. Where it doesn't, buyers bid up what's there. In Boston at $720,695, in Norwell at $1,207,653, in Lexington at $1,568,212, and in Dover at $1,746,599. What's next? Through October, November, and December of 2016-5, the base case is more of the same, but with sharper edges. Activity should stay supported by September's 4.8% rise in single-family closed sales and 6.4% rise in condo closings. Median prices are likely to reflect tightness: $65,000, $500 on the single-family side, and $525,000 for condos in September set the tone, while new listings continue to alleviate, not eliminate, competition with their 7.5% and 13.3% year-over-year gains. Boston's seller power, illustrated by a 21-day median to go under contract and 19.0% of listings taking cuts in August, likely persists in core neighborhoods and suburbs where school calendars and commuter lines define demand arcs. Two watch items will shape outcomes. First, the pace of actual new supply. Western Massachusetts needs 17,000 more homes by 2035, and the statewide aim is 222,000 over 10 years. Track whether building permits and starts accelerate in the counties that posted a 30% rent increase since 2022, and whether condo inventory, up 5.1% year over year in September, keeps improving. Second, investor and short-term rental pressure. If short-term listings continue to rise beyond the 40% growth seen from 2017 to 2022-3, and if investor participation in markets like Springfield remains near its long-run share of around 35% under the multi-purchase or $3.45 million definition, then first-time buyers may face even more competition for entry-level stock. There is also a softer risk. If increasing mortgage rates bite harder, buyers may become pickier, turning Boston's 21-day median to 30 and raising the share of price cuts above 19.0%, especially for sellers who overshoot. But even in that scenario, towns that posted one-year gains like $53,660 in Norwell, $51,686 in Egremont, and $48,044 in Weston have the buffer of multi-year demand. In a more optimistic turn, where new listings continue to rise 7.5% to 13.3% year over year, and local approvals move faster, single-family inventory could flatten the 4.2% annual decline, and condo stock could expand beyond the 5.1% improvement, softening the edge of bidding while keeping volumes solid. The map makes the math real. From Boston's $72,695 in 21 days on market to Western Massachusetts' 30% rent increase since 2001, to Norwell's $7,053.53 $60 one-year climb, to Egremont's $805,000 and $341,259 five-year surge, to Weston's $2,220,602 $832,165 five-year advance, the common thread is constrained choice. Until those 222,000 homes come off the drawing board and into the ground, scarcity will set the price. If you want deeper dives into your town's numbers, from a $412,2674 East Hampton to a $1,969,343 Wellesley, tell me which zip code you're watching.